So, welcome everybody to Lab to Market. Today we're talking about communicating your idea. Because when you start going from having a PhD as some type of research you're working with in some form to the form where it's starting to become a business, that part is difficult to navigate. Because you have to motivate, well, even if you're motivated yourself, that's a good start. But after that, you have to motivate your team who to want to work with you, new people to come on board and work with you. And the most hardest one to convince is people, customers, people to buy and test your product. All of this is related to communication. It's a critical, in my opinion, a critical life skill. Along your specialty skills that you have, communication is one that is very hard to do without. So today we're going to hear really cool stuff about that. We have Tarek, he's going to talk first. Then we have Prateek is going second, and Kari going last. They are going to talk about their perspectives on this. I'll introduce them separately as they go. The schedule looks like this. We start now at 13:05, and then we have a presentation. And you can ask questions during the presentation, but most likely we take them in the last 5 minutes after the presentation is done. And then we do again with the next speaker and the next speaker and so on according to this schedule. What makes this special is in the end of this there's two parts. The first part is this where you can softly interact and send some and listen and interact. But after this is a networking part where we have these digital tables where you can sit, where all the speakers will have chairs that you can go and virtually sit next to them and talk with them about anything you might want to talk with them about. There are probably things that they will say that you want to learn more about. And today is the opportunity for you to talk with them. So quickly about myself, what I do is I help researchers like yourself to instead not only talking about communication, but I work on sales, because many who come through the ranks of science, so to say, or technical development, lack the skills in sales. So what I do is I help people find their inner sales voice in a way that's comfortable for them and help them develop a sales process for their new businesses. But yeah, that's enough about me. I think it's time to bring in our first speaker, which is Tarek Omran. Do we have you on stage?
Yes, we do.
There we go. Yeah, so this is Tarek. Tarek is a dentistry. He has a PhD, he's a doctor in dentistry, but he found a path where he realized that the communication for scientists was a calling, that because he saw so much great research being misunderstood because the presentation, so the research was excellent, but the communication, how to make others understand it, was missing. So that's his specialty, and now he's here to give you some golden words of wisdom. So the stage is yours, Tarek Omran.
So much pressure. Thank you so much. The first research based on story based on research is basically it's of a man who was on an island. So you guys can imagine this beautiful island. It was actually in the United States. It's on the West Coast. And it was a really, really nice island. The weather there is a bit like spring, almost all year long, like the Finnish spring. And in that island, the man who was happening to be there, he was in a dark room, so he could see nothing. And he could hear nothing. And it was just all super dark. And that room actually was solitary confinement. He was in a prison, Alcatraz, to be very specific. That beautiful Alcatraz prison that we all visit if we ever go to the San Francisco Bay Area where all the Silicon Valley things happen. Actually, this prison was a living hell. Because this man, he was there in confinement, and he said, you know what? I don't care. Whatever. I'm a tough guy. But little did he know that what he experienced in that particular moment, after a few days in this dark, dark cell, actually changed the course of history of science. Because then we understood a few things about who we are and what we are as humans. Maybe the first thing that we learned is that we have an innate need for connection. And you might ask me like, hey, Tarek, do you need to put me in a cell for me to understand human connection? Well, let me tell you, this is the extreme of not connecting. And when that actually happened, Mr. Tough Guy, who was in the cell, actually started getting hallucinations, deliriums, and started to see things. As a matter of fact, he became psychotic. He thought he was a tough guy, but he did not understand. He did not understand that human connection is so important for us. The senses that we see, the trees that we see, the birds that we hear singing, were so important that without it, we disconnect. And we can disconnect so bad that we can go crazy. And we can sometimes not even come back. And I think I like to start with a little bit of extreme research, because on the other side is some other research which is actually based on my failures. And why I want to talk about my failures is because I was the total extreme from sensory deprivation when I was younger. I actually liked a lot. And in my circle of friends, I think a lot of my friends, Rasmus is one of them, he would not believe that I loved to talk. I talked so much that people could not even have space for their own thoughts. Can you imagine? So I was that guy. I was like, "Da, da, 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 da." And the reason why I was doing that later on, many years, is that I too was on an island. I too was in a prison cell. I too was in a very dark space. And what I was trying to do is the same need for human connection. You see, those people around us who don't stop talking, your best friend Nancy or Mark, it's actually a call for help. It's a call for, like, I want to make sense of the world, and hence I am going to throw my ideas out to you, and I want to see if it sticks or not. And fast forward a bit more, many more years, when I was in Finland. And I remember, I think I still had a bit of the, I really want to talk about my research going on, because whenever I would talk about the things that I'm doing in the lab, people are like, yeah, nice, cool story, bro. But then when I would talk about my experience in Finland, when I would tell them about the lulu, about the sauna, about the ice swimming, about jumping in the beautiful lake in Turku, people were like, wow, tell me more. And I was always like, wait a minute, do people not care about research? Like, they just care about the fun stuff? Or is there something else? Because that moment when you talk about the great inventions that you have in your research group, and then people just have this silence, this terrible silence, like it's as if somebody just put a bucket of water on that steaming hot stones in a sauna, and it just burns your ears and brain. You get it. So that's when I think my story started, is I wanted to understand what's going on. And that was far before I understood the need for human connection. And so how does that tie into science? Well, it's very simple. Little did I know that when I told people about the multi-fracture behavior of dental composite materials in the tooth, they yawned. But when I told them, hey, get this, what we're working on right now is going to help patients all around the world, people with holes in their teeth, have a filling material that could last for a lifetime. Imagine just going once to the dentist and never ever visiting him or her ever again. And people are like, wait a minute. Here's my money. I want that. I don't want to go to the dentist every other day. I want something that lasts a lifetime. And there, I got a hook. There, I got a connection. And there was something more meaningful happening. It's I was inspired by my science. And now they were too. So that's the first research I like to share with you. The second is actually, okay, this is a bit hard to say, really hard to say, but it's a philosophy. It's not so popular. And a lot of you, I know, a lot of you are researchers here. A lot of you might not even believe it. But do you guys remember, like, this is classical behavioral psychology. But do you remember the whole, like, if your child does something wrong, you punish him. If they do something right, you reward them, right? So this whole punishment and reward system. And that research blew my mind. Because get this, the hypothesis here is that when we are punished about something, and nowadays, as you see, most people, like even in business, they're like, you just search for employees and you see when they do something right and you just reward them. And apparently, Now, this is really mind-blowing, but apparently both rewards and punishment are the same exact, like they're two opposite sides of the same exact coin. If you find somebody, let's say your colleague, doing something wrong in research and you go out there to punish them, of course, they're going to be a lot less likely to do the research. But equally, if you start rewarding them for the research that they're doing, they actually lose interest in it. And there's scores of research on this specific point where they get employees and they start incentivizing them, let's say materialistically, or even like with words, and they start doing things that may, like they ensure that they get the rewards. Their incentive is not about the curiosity. It's not about trying to do something that has an impact on society anymore, but it becomes like for the reward, for that external reward, for that good word from my boss, for that acknowledgement that I get. And this is actually tying me into the first point. Wait a minute. Is our need for human connection and approval so strong that it's actually making us want to seek it all the time? And they've seen this with creatives. And as researchers, we are actually creatives. They've seen it the same thing. When you have a creative, you start incentivizing him with some sort of reward in some way, shape, or form. They start getting less creative. They don't go into endeavors to try to take risks and to try to discover something new in the lab, for example. No, they'd rather do what works. They'd rather do what gets the funding. They'd rather do what gets the money in. And this is a big conundrum, because the question we want to ask ourselves here is, why are we doing what we're doing? Is it because we are truly passionate about it? Do we want to take that forward and inspire the people around us, talk about it and show them what's in it for them and how important the work we're doing is going to be for our societies? Maybe that inspirational talk can inspire them to go forward, can inspire them to actually do something out there in the world. Well, that brings me to the final research, and it's about staying curious and staying hungry and staying foolish. So stay hungry, stay foolish is something that Steve Jobs actually talked about. And that was really, really interesting because he had that childlike curiosity. And he wasn't the only one, actually. A lot of scientists, a lot of researchers have that childlike curiosity. But we, again, have a little problem because the research that I'm going to refer to is called the growth mindset research. And the growth mindset research is, again, scores of research. They come along this title. If you're interested, you can, of course, always go and dig deeper. But it talks about the idea that when you face a challenge, you take it with a smile on your face, more or less. I'm toning this down, but it's basically when you have a challenge, you want to go for it. You want to be curious about it. You want to do something. Just like a little child who sees that vase on top of the table, that very expensive vase, and suddenly he just runs, grabs the vase, and smashes it on the floor. Oh, that child was very curious. Will it smash? Well, it did. And the parents are very, very unhappy. But what I'm trying to say here is researchers are more or less the same thing. We are also those little children. We are also those curious people that are going out there. And this is our conundrum. Exactly, Ismail. Childlike curiosity is equal to genuine interest. Absolutely. And I think the tricky part here is, when do we get a growth mindset and when do we get a fixed mindset? You see, a person with a fixed mindset will seek the approval, will seek positive results, will seek something actually going and working, but they'll never want to seek something that actually pains them. They'll never seek that they go out there to the world, talk about the research, and then get people yawning. Oh, so what are we going to have for dinner today? This is the difference. It's such a deep philosophy about how to take the challenges of the world as challenges, as things to be conquered, as things to go over. And I'd like to end my story with. Actually, this is a very funny story. It's about Mr. B. We'll call him Mr. B. And Mr. B was, wanting to be like this handsome, attractive, appealing person. And then Mr. B went out there to the market, and He got rejected once, and it kind of affected him a bit. Then he formulated a better speech, and then he went out there to the market again. And he said, "Hey, are you interested in my looks? And look, this is what I have to offer." And again, he was turned down in the market. And I'm talking about the market of potential partners, right? So Mr. B was looking for a partner. But the third time Mr. B got rejected was actually very interesting, because Mr. B started just indulging in food and unhealthy snacking, and just like how he was basically an emotional eater. And funny enough, Mr. B is literally a bee that got rejected in the market of finding another bee to mate with. This is actually a very interesting research by Robert Trivers. And they found, those evolutionary biologists, that insects, social insects, actually behave very similar to us being rejected. That's so fascinating. Like, just think about it. We go out there to the world, we talk about our research, we get turned down. Well, guess what? A bee, when they're turned down too, they'll actually stop seeking mating with other bees, and instead will start just drinking and eating sugars and just like not wanting to go out there in the world anymore and want to feel better about themselves. That's a freaking insect. That's an insect. And here we are, humans, the pinnacle of let's say creation, and we think we're like, we're above nature, and then here we are suffering from being curious, suffering from finding a connection. And finally, maybe we're suffering for having our own autonomy, that we are looking for carrots or sticks to keep going forward. So I'm not here today to tell you, you should go out there and talk, and if you don't, then you are a bad person. No, there's no point of that. I just wanted to share with you how we are working, and I want to share with you that I think autonomy is in your hands. You get to decide when you're ready to speak, and you get to decide what you do speak about, and you get to decide how you want to connect with people. And of course, most importantly, you get to decide when and how to be curious, so that you can, at some point, whenever you're ready, take your talks, take your research from the lab and go out there to the market. Thank you.
All right. Nice stuff. Thank you, Tarek.
Thank you, Rasmus.
That was cool. That was a cool talk. Tarek is a talk specialist, so I love listening. I was going to do something else, and I was like, I was going to fold laundry, and then I couldn't because I had to concentrate. So Tarek has to say. So thank you very much. That was really, really, really nice. Let's have, if does anybody have a question, we can have like one question if there's any. Otherwise, I will ask a question. So what made you, like the honeybee got rejected and then they just wanted to be fat and die. When you got rejected in the way that you're presenting about your research and you're realizing through their behavior that they're not interested, what made you able to deal with the rejection and take it to a more positive angle? What was it that made you able to do that?
I think at first I did do like the bee. I actually had very big cheeks, if you don't know. I was big on sugars, and I was smoking back in the days. I was doing a lot of unhealthy habits, I have to say. And I was not exercising. I was just not the person I wanted to be. But I have to say that I was inspired by the people around me. I think I kind of adopted their growth mindset, is that I saw how they dealt with turn downs. I remember once I was with this professor and we missed the train. And I was like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. We had a conference, we missed the train. It's terrible. And I was kind of having the self-blame. And I was like, okay, it was always me. That's the problem. But then she said, whatever, things happen. And even if you think it was your fault and you took a fucking long time in the toilet to take a poop, but it's completely fine. And there was this maybe being easy on yourself. I think this is the thing that I started learning is all right, when it comes to communication, you won't always get it from the first shot. But that doesn't mean I'll stop trying. That doesn't mean that I am a disaster. That doesn't mean that, it's me or my research is just boring. That's how it is. No, maybe there's a different angle, because I've seen people talk about things that are much more complex than me, much more at the face level boring than mine, and they did a fantastic job. They're amazing storytellers.
And they know if they have that boring research and they can tell it that well, why can't I? Because apparently they're stupid in the research, so they can't be that smart. Well, that's maybe taking it too far. But I mean, research is difficult. I haven't done much, so I'm hat off to all of you who actually do proper research. You take the society forward. But okay, I'm going to end with that. Thank you very much, Tarek, for your speech.
Thank you, Rasmus.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in the networking after the talks.
Absolutely. See you in the networking.
All right, thank you. Now let's share again my screen just to keep the structure, so it's easier to understand what's going on, because all of you weren't here in the beginning. So we are now we're going to go to talk with Prateek. I'm going to introduce him soon. So we have Finnadvance. We have some questions if we have time for it, and then Uute Scientific, and then networking in the end. So we're now at Finnadvance with Prateek. So Prateek is a bioengineer, and yes, there we go on stage. Nice to see you. He's a bioengineer, and he was actually able to become a professor without being a professor. It was kind of a weird track. I think he's going to tell you all about it. And he has a really cool startup working with the membranes and testing medical drugs can be tested to a not on human brain, but a fake membrane instead. I think Prateek knows more about that than I do. So there we go. Prateek on stage. Thank you. Let's hear what you have to say. All right.
Thanks, Rasmus. For everyone, I've known Rasmus for some time now. We have done a few of these over the past 2 years, and it has been a pleasure always. And what I mean by being a professor is I'm an independent principal investigator with 2 EU-funded projects, which has been my dream. And it's very challenging to do that without being a 60-year-old professor. And one of my ideas in this meeting was to tell that there are these other ways which are fast track, but they come with their own risks and rewards. So there is nothing which comes for free. So I would like to have this as a more back and forth discussion. So if you have questions, I'm very happy to take it. I will have a presentation which is just as a placeholder. The presentation should be just just be picking up questions. Yeah.
All right. And when we do this, you can keep the questions coming in the chat, by the way, guys, if you want that to be interactive. But so Prateek, when did you realize that the research that you're sitting on should be going somewhere? I mean, because when you start, I don't know how old you were, but like, when did you realize, like, yeah, this should be more than just a laboratory experiment?
I think that's a good point. So I've been a researcher most of all of my life. I'm still a researcher, and there were a lot of things which took me from research to starting a company. I never wanted to have a company. Let's make it clear. And that also tied very well into what are my life goals, what I wanted from my life, and finally, what does it mean to go from lab to market? Do you stay a researcher or research in a company? What does it really mean? My research background, I always wanted to work on very cool areas. So this is from 2000. I was doing nanoparticle fabrication. Sorry, it's a little bit small here. But I was generating quantum dots using bacteria. So the idea was you could make quantum dots for displays, which were generated not in a factory, but in a living factory, in a fermentation tank. And then I was offered a job from Aalto University to develop enzymatic fuel cells in 2009. That's when I first came to Finland, and really liked the approach at Aalto. And you might recognize that the logo is very old. I was there when TKK and Aalto combined. I was in that grand dinner. And finally, I did a lot of animal work. I've worked with zebrafishes, with mouse models, and generated my own Frankenstein models. And the learning was that we were developing drugs on animals for a number of years, and we were just curing all the animal diseases, but never on humans. They never worked. So that was the reason why I thought there has to be a better way. And research is just so slow, typically, not all the time, but most of the time, research is very slow. So that's when I decided I will create this skill set which will allow me to fast track my life goals. I joined the Erasmus program, and I did a bunch of projects. First in Germany, developing surface chemistries, how to create surfaces with varying properties. And at ETH Zurich, growing miniature livers, which are now used by pharma. And then finally, in Denmark, Italy, Portugal, and a few other countries, setting up my own ideas, how to make these small chips where we could grow individual human organs, at least to the level where drugs could be studied there. And over the course of past 14 years, I managed to get respect and confidence from a few respected people around the world who could vouch for me that, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. And not only verbal, but also get some financial backing. And with that experience, I made my first company in robotics. I got some exposure at a NASA-funded hackathon, got some projects funded by European Space Agency, and I've also been doing very risky projects, flying drones for radiation sensing. Here I'm flying a drone in the middle of a typhoon in Japan. And those were the kind of risks which no other company would take, because you would lose a 60,000 euro drone in a minute. And I did lose 2 drones. So I lost a few drones, the cheaper ones. Not this, the one which I'm holding here. This one I still have it, but it gave me this credibility, like to go above and beyond what a typical company would do, and that's how you get yourself known. That okay, even if you're a one-man company or a one-person company, you are able to do things what others won't do. And from that point, today we are 21 people in the biotech company, and we are funded by EU. So I think all those learnings have helped to also communicate with the team. A startup is a very risky place. You're basically convincing others to work with you in a place where you don't know tomorrow you have the money to put food on the table or not. So the people really have to believe that it's going to work. And you have to show them that you yourself have taken that risk, and it's worth doing it. So there has to be some success story behind it. And today we are present in Finland, in Asia, in Korea, and we are working with pharma. Different places, different cultures. You have to be very open-minded. It's, I think, for myself, it was a very big insight that we belittle things which we don't understand. So it took me, let's say, 20 years to understand that. So if we don't understand something, we shouldn't think it's wrong. That's one of my biggest lessons, I would say, that we all should try to understand. But why to go through this hoops? Why not stay and become a 60-year-old professor? Well, not too long ago, I was not in a great situation. So I know that I was able to afford Legos only 2 years ago. So that's but from there. Now we are known globally. So Finnadvance has a global footprint. We serve in 19 countries. And I've been at basically every event possible. So for me, this was I didn't want to stay here. It's a very bad situation when you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And once you're here, then it's also, you have to remember that there are a lot of people who are in this situation. So I think this is very important, that for me, failure would mean that I will go back to this situation, which I'm very familiar with. So there was never, it can never get worse. So that was the thing which I always remember, that it can never get, you'll be back on the street. What's the worst that could happen? So perspective is also something which is very important to know, that why you should put more effort. I'm paying my taxes, I have a job, why I should do more hours, I'm not getting overpaid. So you have to understand that first of all, if you are working in a place where you are able to lift everybody else, then it's personally rewarding. And then if there are no poor people, then we won't have the problems what we have. We won't have, people won't steal if they have enough. So you have to really remember, like, what is the basic reason why. So that was very important. That why I know why I'm doing this, why I would do 20-hour days and not get stressed. This job sucks. So I think that is very important to know why you're doing, and is it important, or are you just Instagram? No offense there.
Can I ask you, Prateek? So even if you would stay, and this is a really interesting story. It correlates with my own life as well. There, I still remember that I saved money to buy a Nintendo 64, and the car battery on one of my parents. Well, we had one car. The parents' car broke, and they said, "Can we please have that money because we can't afford the battery?" So I gave them all that money. Of course, they gave me food and stuff, so I did. They still paid for everything else, but I remember that was quite rough. So that makes me more motivated to stay on the plus side of the balance sheet as an adult, I'd say. So that doesn't never have to happen to my kids. But in any case, what I want to ask you is, like, you could have gone like, the professor route, or, being a doctor student and maybe start teaching, or going into a company. Why, like somebody else's company, go into pharma, for example? Why did you choose the startup route? Because that's also one of the ones that you have no idea if it's going to work or not.
Yeah. I think that's because I'm impatient, so I don't have the time. So this is also quite, this is something which I learned from a lot of other people. And you see, for example, I know that Elon Musk trying to build a Mars colony, it's stupid. It's stupid. It's not going to happen until we are alive, in our lifetime. But because of this crazy guy, others have to do developments in space technology. Others have to build life support systems. So at least the push is there, because the normal way, NASA had plans to go to Mars in 2050. And then Elon comes and, oh no, it's 2025. So then, shortening the timeline. So I think this is very important. I think that comes from a personal drive. So for me also, I think life would suck once you're old and it's difficult to travel. And I'm really afraid of getting dementia, Parkinson's, for which we don't have cure. And so I think for me, impatience is another driver, that I want to do it now, tomorrow. But also from the traditional point, the biggest difference is that what I see is a bit like cook and a chef. So maybe somebody in the audience can tell. I'm pretty sure everybody knows, but can you tell what's the difference between a cook and a chef? There are no wrong answers.
I have never gotten this question before, so I'm not sure. Is repetition, Tanya says?
So the cooks are, they can make the food. They can follow the recipe from start to end. And at a 5-star restaurant, at a Michelin restaurant, you have cooks, but you have one chef, a Michelin chef, which creates the recipe. So I think this is also, I really believe everybody doesn't have to be a chef. Otherwise, there are no cooks. And if you're a chef, it's very risky, because you have to know how to cook, because not everybody makes it as a chef. But as a chef, you're able to create a new recipe which people might like. There's a very big question mark, might. As a cook, you can work at any restaurant, but as a chef, you have to be, the person who's creating the recipe. So I think that's another very big thing, that are you able to take that risk? You don't have to. Not everybody has to. If everybody goes for the chef route, we won't have any cooks left. So this is a very delicate balance, how to also temper your own expectations. That, okay, I'm not able to put 100% of my time, but I would be happy as a top cook. So this also comes from very personal drive, where you would like to be. And in the scientific community, this is from a really good paper which I like, is that we ask a lot of questions, and we have a whole set of studies. We have a lot of interpretations, and the end results, we hope that they go to the society, but it's mainly going to the scientific community. Why we are on this planet, why why is water transparent? Questions like these, I think they are very fundamental. We should know the answer. But I think sometimes it's also good to know the questions, what we really, today, what is important. So I think this is one thing which really derives my lab to market part. That can we take these questions and make it, the aim is to go towards the market. So I think that really drives the research questions for research-based companies. Is this something somebody will pay for? Why is water transparent? If somebody is going to pay for it, then that's a good lab to market. But normally people won't pay for it. They're happy as long as you can bring them water. So I think that's a very decisive. I really like this graph, that if your question, if your hypothesis satisfies this workflow, I think then you should drive for this alternate path. Otherwise, these questions, which are very, very deep-rooted for human curiosity, which take much longer time, I think we also need them. Otherwise, we stop being creative. And finally, this is, I've made this mistake. I don't want others to make this mistake. So stop wasting your time, stop wasting others' time. Everybody has an idea. Everybody, it's not an innovation. Idea is not an innovation. And people are so tied to their ideas that, I don't want to tell you, otherwise you will steal it. If somebody can steal your idea just by talking to you, then it's worthless. Then it means that somebody else can do it much better than you. So if you cannot talk about it, if you cannot say without having the worry that somebody will steal it or somebody else can do it, then you should already let it go. Somebody else will do it better than you. I know I'm very cynical right now, but I think this is a wake-up call which is really needed. Rather have it now than have it at your Series A stage when you have 10 people and the investor, maybe a bit more smart investor, is like, nah, we know a company which has already done this. And then you have to take care of 10 people.
When did you realize that this was the case? Because it sounded like you in the past were like, I'm not going to tell you, it's so good, but I'm not telling it.
I've been part of a lot of EU and national funded projects, and I've seen that traditionally, so again, I'm sorry for generalizing, but a lot of academics, they come up with ideas and they're like, we just have to miniaturize this and then it will save the planet. I'm like, how is it different from any other professor saying the same thing? How is that different? Oh, we will do it first. So I think that was quite problematic, that we did a lot of publicly funded projects and they were not going anywhere. We were only using taxpayers' money, project to project. And it's good that you're getting paid salary, but once you have to realize sometimes, like, what are you doing? Is it the best way to spend taxpayers' money? Are you doing it just for the sake of telling the Academy of Finland, like, yeah, we did this thing, and yeah. So that was very, I was quite frustrated, and that's when I decided that let's do this much more risky way, where academic grants, they won't fund you very easily because you're a company, and you have to do same level of research, maybe even better and faster than universities, and only then you can get same level of grants. So for us, for example, many universities also study that working on animals is not the same as working on humans. And this is also something what many universities, many research groups are able to make these small chips where you can grow human tissues and make them behave a bit like as if they were growing inside the human body. So that's what Finnadvance has done, but much faster. And we don't care about publishing papers, but we file patents. We make open access reports, which the EU and other professors can vouch for that, yeah, this is correct. But another big thing is people, I think, in today's society where we are socially very connected, everybody thinks too much about that. They think that everybody is so special or important. I think that's not the case. Nobody cares. So the reality is that we all are occupied in our work. So if you think that you will take a risk and fail, nobody cares. So just go on with it. It also goes that if you're successful, if you're second best, nobody cares. In a startup, you can't go to an investor and say, hey, we have this cool technology, but we are second after our competitor. Please invest in us. Hey, thanks for telling. We will go to the first best. So it works both ways. That don't care what others think about you, but also remember that that also comes that you cannot be the second or third. You have to be on the top.
All right. Do you have any last finishing words here? We have gone a little bit over time already with this one.
I think that's it. So for me, it's just know that in Finland we are. I've been in 32 countries, and I've spent maybe 4 to 6 weeks in every country at least, and 2.5 years maximum. And Finland is the most safest place. Full stop. Like there is no place where you can say, this works better. There is no place on the planet. I've worked in Switzerland and Japan, Korea. It doesn't matter. Here, I can say that everybody should take risk. I think we have to have the culture where we are supporting daring,
To be more daring, and like a risk here is not a real risk. Like you won't end up on the street just because it didn't exactly go as planned.
Yeah.
You'll probably be able to go back to your job. You might maybe they don't even have to quit. You could do it on the side.
Exactly. So you will have a job next. For me, I know that even today, if I go bankrupt, I could go to McDonald's. I would happily work back. I still have the patents, and get some money and make a company next year. No regrets. No. But I wouldn't be able to do it if I was in India or any other place. So I would really tell everybody to look out for cool places which you really admire and give your best. Don't do a mediocre job. Give your 120%, because there are millions of people, if not billions, who don't even have the opportunity.
Thank you. That was a good final word. Thank you very much, Prateek, for this presentation. It's really, man, you're on fire. Like I didn't know you were this type of presenter. I didn't know.
Thanks, Rasmus. Thanks.
All right, nice to have you. Okay, for the interest of time, we have to move on. We don't take any more questions, but thank you very much, Prateek. It was really cool to see, and he will be in the networking after, so you can talk with him then. And then we have Kari. Welcome very much, Kari. I work with your company as well, Uute Scientific, but not with you. I work with your colleague Oliver. And you have really cool microorganisms. I'm paraphrasing here, but microorganisms that can help you in different type of diseases. For example, skin problems can be helped for. And you guys have also made it from the research table to the real market. So I'm looking forward to hearing how that went for you guys. Stage is yours. Maybe I can ask you one question. We're going to move over to the other section in a couple of minutes. But I was curious about how did you dare to take the change from, like, why not just stay in the world of research?
Well, the research team members are partly staying in the research community. So I found the commercial team that it actually took over. But in the beginning, we were 5 founders or 6 founders, and we had equal shares in the company. So the researchers joined in as advisors.
That's a good way to navigate the situation. Because the research, I mean, a team can have a lot of people, like 5, 6, 7 people in it. So, and many of them don't want to take the leap and leave their situation and their.
And actually, also it's a competency also that if you have a very long research career, you are extremely good in what you are doing, but that might not really help you very much in the company.
That's true. I agree with you there. Yeah, that's so. But yeah, and when did you get your first? How long did it take from commercialization, like from that you founded a company till you got your first paying customer?
About 6 months, which was pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But also, that's what you important that you said there, Kari. I think many of you might have missed it. But for me, as a commercialization specialist, what he said, communication with customers, meaning you try to sell to them and they tell you no, super important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because otherwise, because we're all in our heads, we love being in our heads and making plans and strategies, saying, "Oh, it's going to be so good." And as soon as you go out into the real world, people will tell you that I don't want to buy it. Why? It's great. It solves your skin problems. So you're like, nah, I still don't want it. So what? So then you have to repackage and move and change it. And it took, I mean, and even in 6 months, that's fast that you were able to figure it out with that time and close the deal in 6 months.
Yeah, they were actually the first customer who made the deal was not happy with the product. So we had to adjust it in the process. And ever since it has been suitable for the follow-up customers. And now the first customer has done 2 relaunches. So they started with 2 and now they have 5 products with our ingredient.
Nice, good work. So so even though with years of research and thinking and making it and refining it, you still needed to make a final tweak together with the customer to actually get the formula that was needed for the market, and then it worked.
Yes, and one thing also from the research is that actually for the customers, at least for the bigger companies, the research that was done in the universities was, I can't say worthless, but didn't help much. It just demonstrated that it could work. But then as a company, we had to demonstrate it that it actually works in reality. This was
Yeah.
also a bit surprising.
And I think that's the scary part. I think that's what many people makes it scary to go to the market, is that there's a small feeling inside of me that, maybe it's not as good as I think, and if somebody tells me that, it will break down this big pyramid I've built of confidence on my thing, that I tell everybody how good it is. But if it actually is seen by the real market, but it also show what you've done, Kari, that might happen, but you can work through it. Or all of you guys who presented today, you can work your way through it. So
yeah, you never get refused. You might, the acceptance might take some time.
yes. It's like they say it was in the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, that either you win or you learn.
Yeah.
That's your options. Okay, but I think this time, thank you very much, Kari, for your presentation. Thank you for taking a couple of questions as well. Now it's time to go to the networking session. That means that you can go to these tables freely, hang out, talk with people, and but so you might see me, I'll be there. But for the anyways, it's a thank you here from me, from the sponsors, which are VTT and Aalto. So we are here happy to support this stuff, and I'm really happy to have all of you here. So this was me, Rasmus Basilea. Thank you very much, and see you guys at the tables.